You're listening to Second Cut. This is the independent podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, history, criticism, etc. And this may be the best I've done that intro before. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who's looking for more of those savory snacks. Thank you.
I'm Sam, and I'm not an asshole. I'm just kind of a son of a bitch.
I'm upset that I didn't steal your movie because there's so many good "I'm the one" lines in Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I suppose we'll talk about subject this week's Wes Anderson, and I suppose we'll be talking about most of his films, at least in passing. But yeah, Royal Tenenbaums tends to be my go-to one. I think it's the only one of his films I've seen 3 times. I think might have seen some of the others twice, but yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly twice. I think Darjeeling Limited may have moved into 3 now. But I love, gosh, if I had to just pick one, I might pick this or Rushmore. I really love those two.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first 3, but basically the 3 he wrote with Owen Wilson. So Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and Tenenbaums, they're all pretty great, I think. And then for me, since then, they've been a bit more hit and miss, but they're always interesting. So.
What I love about Wes Anderson is I get to claim him as a Texan, even though you wouldn't know it from watching any of his work, other than that the Wilsons are in it. Although, would you identify them as Texan, Sam?
I think they've got that drawl, haven't they?
I think they're a bit more California surfer in style. If you didn't know that they were,
I think Bottle Rocket is quite Texan. Kind of feels like literally they made it in their hometown, didn't they?
Yeah, where UT is, Austin. Yeah, but Wes Anderson is obviously one of the more popular 21st century auteurs, and I would say especially among women. Like when I'm seeing discussion of auteurs like on Reddit or something, you're just going by like Avatar on there. But and then I remember a lot of love for him at the film magazine from our staff too. And
I mean, I think just to stereotype wildly, I think film school dudes tend to be obsessed by Kubrick, Tarantino, and Nolan, don't they?
Yes.
Whereas, I think women's cinephiles, I think it tends to be quite high up the list. I think Margaret wrote quite a bit about Wes Anderson for in the film magazine days, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's just, his films feel wholesome, even if they're not, even if the subject matter can veer into inappropriate, even if Natalie Portman's getting nude in a short film, they feel like little storybooks, and that's what we like about them. In some cases, more literally than others.
Yeah, it's a very kind of heightened reality, isn't it? This isn't our real world that we're watching, with his movies. I mean, I think next someone like Tim Burton, I think he's one of these auteurs who's primarily known for how his films look. You can see a frame from a film who's directed instantly. It's just unmistakable. But rewatching these 2 films for this episode, it got me thinking. There is something about, you're supposed to make a comparison to someone like Yorgos Lanthimos as well, because in terms of how his characters actually,
they're very similar.
Not tonally, but in terms of how his characters actually speak. It's deliberate, almost robotic, almost like removed from like emotion. It's almost intentionally manufactured. It's kind of I think Yorgos would do it just to kind of offset the viewer a bit, to kind of make him feel a bit weird. But Wes Anderson, I think, just again, it fits this like heightened reality of his film worlds for me.
We also need Colin Farrell and Emma Stone in Wes Anderson movies. They feel like they'd be there.
I think so, yeah.
Is there any actor who couldn't be in a Wes Anderson movie? Like, I think we talk about what if everyone's a Muppet and you pick one person? The Muppets could be in Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah. I don't think you could get like Vin Diesel in a Wes Anderson film.
He's a good answer for anything like that, I feel like. I don't think he'd fit in Tarantino films either. Although if anybody could put him in a weird place, I guess maybe he could.
Because you have that accent crossover the two universes. Because Willem Dafoe is obviously a big fan of he's worked with Wes a couple of times, and obviously with Yorgos more recently. So
Did I do The Life Aquatic on an earlier episode of this show? I feel like I did.
Yes, we talked about, was it like underrated movies from well-known directors? So
Sure.
yeah, you did Life Aquatic, and I think I did Only God Forgives reference. So, yeah.
Sam's here because he has a great memory. Whenever we talk about Wes Anderson, Sam, what is the first artistic touch that comes to mind for you?
Perfectly centered, meticulous frames. I think characters standing right in the middle of the frame, looking right down the barrel of the lens with some bright block color behind them.
Yeah, the centered framing is a big one, and then the other one is, you mentioned it there, the really saturated color, and even in Royal Tenenbaums, I don't know what it was shot on, but obviously his newer stuff it looks a lot crisper. Maybe it was the version I was watching, because I watched one on streaming and the other, through a different medium, but. Yeah, in terms of like every one of his movies, we just watched the Phoenician Scheme trailer, like just bright color. It's such a big part of his movies and the feel of them.
Yeah, did you see his Roald Dahl adaptations on Netflix last year?
Why am I not shocked?
Story of Henry Sugar. Yeah. Again, I think perfect marriage of kind of source material and filmmaker, really, wasn't it? But that was very much. It just made you wonder why he hadn't done a Roald Dahl adaptation before, and again, just the way it looked, the color and the heightened reality, and the slightly twisted kind of nature to some of it, but kind of in like a cheeky kind of throwaway kind of way, but still. Because a lot of his things, if you think about it, elements of his story, if you think about them, they are quite dark. They're very kind of flippant and cheery in how they present it, but some twisted stuff happens in amongst it all.
Oh yeah, and we'll get into more specific aspects of that later, but a theme certainly in these two films, but I mean across pretty much the entire filmography, dysfunctional families, pretty big one for him. The sort of precocious children, and characters who are intelligent, artsy, clever, all of those bits, and then the nostalgia. That's another part of it. All of his movies have a feeling of, it feels like a childhood storybook. It feels like it might be taking place in the past, even if it's the present.
Yeah. Even the ones that are in theory taking place now, they're always looking back at film history and like nostalgia, probably for the time he was growing up in. I mean, like Royal Tenenbaums, it's a 2001 film, but it's referencing with the fashion and the manner of speaking. It's very much referencing the 70s, and I don't think in that like technology. I don't think you see any particularly modern technology in it. He just avoids it like the plague. Just it could take place in any times. He says like a fable or something that
might at least 20th century
might be. Might be told to like teach a lesson to a younger listener or something like that.
Yeah, and not always a simple lesson either. Like it's these two films we're talking about, they're fresh in my mind. There's all of these different characters. They're all similar, but they all have their, aside from individual exterior quirks, like they're very different emotionally in the way that they deal with the issues that they're dealing with in these films. And it could be a bit complex. Like with Darjeeling Limited, it's about grief, but like what exactly is it saying about it with all these different people on this wacky adventure?
Yeah, I mean, think about his other movies, the ones we're not going to talk about in detail on this. I think I'll say Bottle Rocket's probably a pretty typical kind of first feature from like a promising indie filmmaker,
and in the state of Texas, UT is like the premier film school. So
mm, mm. Yeah, but then you did Rushmore next, which again is, as you say, like a precocious kind of teen, and very much like an outcast, but just the smartest person in every room he's in, and even if he isn't, he makes out like he is. It's this confidence in your own abilities, which I suppose Anderson must have as well. If he's got such a distinct kind of vivid style that he sticks to time and time again. He knows what he's good at and the kind of stories he wants to tell. So it just kind of he's very singular, as a creative. And then something like Life Aquatic, again, that's like, I suppose, focusing on these like this kind of oddball kind of. It's a
Documentarians.
Yeah, documentaries, but they are like a dysfunctional family again, like like a more professional capacity. But yeah, kind of misunderstood people don't really fit in with like with the world as it is. They're almost like from a different time, and just exploring their passions, whatever the cost.
Yes.
Um,
Fantastic Mr. Fox is the first animated film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that and Isle of Dogs. Obviously, he's a big fan of stop motion animation. I mean, you can't see. He obviously likes animation, but you can't see him ever doing like a more like a CG animated segment in any of his films. It's always going to be that very handmade kind of old fashioned style.
Which
Um,
one thing I'm noticing here is he did Darjeeling Limited with Searchlight, and then
yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox went to 20th Century Fox. I wonder if they thought this is going to be a huge hit with the kids.
Or was it literally just to work with a studio with Fox in the title? I mean,
Yes, or that. But it did not make a lot of. It was a $40 million film that made 46 million. So
yeah. And I, growing up, I had a difficult relationship with that one because though I appreciate it as like a work of art, and I can see like the skill and the passion behind it, it's nothing like the book at all. I mean, I was a big fan of the book, as a child, and yeah, he just basically used the barest kind of plot points in it, and then just does his own thing. Basically,
it's like Kieran's not even missing. We're getting book analysis.
yeah, I know. Yeah,
Moonrise
I mean, apart from
Kingdom. Oh, sorry.
yeah, well, apart from obviously transfer it over to the States, for a start, that's a big change. It's a very very British tale in the book, but tale.
God. Um,
Uh,
by the way, also another Wes Anderson collaborator behind the camera is Roman Coppola. You'll see him
yeah,
as a co-writer on so many of these movies, including Moonrise Kingdom, which it's not one that I super remember well, but Precocious Kids again. Uh,
yeah,
and also the aesthetic of like the scouts in your childhood and
yeah. That was very much looking back with kind of a nostalgic kind of lens. But again, dealing with some kind of dark stuff in amongst them. I mean, the adults, especially in that one, they're going through some shit. Um,
and then
trying
the big one.
trying to process that. Yeah.
Yeah, Grand Budapest Hotel. I'm sad we didn't get a chance to do more Rafe Fiennes, just because I like saying his pretentious name.
Yeah, and again, unless you count certain interesting line readings as Voldemort, who knew up to that point that Ray Fiennes could do comedy? But he's like, turns out he's born for it, and he's done more stuff like that since. So it's obviously a muscle he wanted to flex. But yeah, he's quite. I mean, if there's one reason to see Grand Budapest, it's for Ray Fiennes. And that one again, I think that's like 2/3 a great movie, and then I think it just goes a bit off the rails towards the end. I think he could have just wrapped it up a bit sooner and just he got a bit carried away. I think, but
Yeah, obviously, huge at the Academy Awards that year. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, and won Best Original Score, Best Production Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and Best Costume Design. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
obviously, those were things that all of his films did well, but that's the one I couldn't tell you why, but that's the one that really just blew him up in terms of the Academy, at least. I get, and
Yeah,
that
and
sort of
I think he's
catapults
always
you into a different pop culture sphere as well.
yeah, I mean, he's always obviously the people who love him really love him and stick with him. He's definitely like one who's got his fans, stick with him throughout his career, and see like a new film for his as like an event, and generally critics tend to like him as well. I think his films generally have been consistently well received over his career. I think there's the odd one who's a bit more derisive about him. Um, Again, we don't need Kieran here because I'm going to bring up Mark Kermo, but he's famously not a Wes Anderson cheerleader, and he usually he just says whenever new one comes out. So Wes has made his film again.
Well,
And
let's talk about that for a second, because that's something I've seen online about the Phoenician Scheme. It's sort of a rejection of Wes Anderson doing Wes Anderson again. What do you think of that as a criticism?
I think obviously he's got his go-to themes and obviously very distinct visuals and some similarities, and obviously his uh, his kind of troupe of like regular actors as well. That are in most of them. But I think all of his films are pretty different, really. I think they're all exploring quite a range of kind of different ideas, and story conceits and stuff. So I don't think he's a one-trick pony by any means.
And on top of that, you wouldn't say, "Oh, Dr. Seuss writing another rhyming book with
No,
silly cartoon."
no,
Like some people have their thing that they
yeah.
do in terms of their
Yeah, but also
style.
I do think as a filmmaker he has matured, especially over the last decade or so. I think all of his last few films have all been probably more ambitious than any of his previous work. For better or worse. I think he's constantly trying new stuff out and kind of trying to just take a slightly different route to his to the eventual kind of recognizable stylistic kind of end game.
Well, and I actually haven't seen French Dispatch. I mean, is that a film where you see that occurring?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole premise of that is it's a magazine basically, and it's like each it's almost like a anthology, and each segment is one of the pieces written in this magazine. Basically, so they're all in different writing styles, different genres, and explore different things. So there's the food, there's the art criticism kind of segment. There's the food segment. There's sort of like a caper type bit. So with like this this investigator, on the tale of these kind of gang members. So it's quite far ranging, kind of interesting. I mean, I suppose the very nature of an anthology film is probably some segments are stronger than others, but I think it's really, it's definitely an interesting way to look at it, and it allows him about what he did with Grand Budapest. He changes the film, the style of the film, depending on what genre that segment is in. So the aspect ratio will be different. The way it's framed will be different. They'll look quite distinct, these different segments, and take influence from different genres throughout like Hollywood history. So and
Huh.
and
So
well,
Wes
French
Anderson
film
didn't
as
just
well.
make another Wes Anderson film. Curious.
No, I don't think so. And it's probably from the last decade of his most recent ones. It's probably my favorite of his, I'd say. So yeah.
Uh, I like Asteroid City a lot. Just it's such a weird movie. I like the
Yeah.
alien. And yeah, it's another dysfunctional family going on summer vacation. I don't quite
Yeah.
remember, but um,
See that was the one where I kind of agreed with, because I think there was a little bit of backlash to it, and I sort of agreed with the backlash on that one. For me, it was almost like a bit too Wes Anderson-y, even for me. It was um, certain directors, they almost become like not like a parody of themselves, but they kind of I don't think there's anything really surprising in it. Um, I think you know what it's going to look like throughout, and I think it's possibly retreads too much of his older kind of themes that he's explored before. I think just especially in comparison to like Grand Budapest and French Dispatch, which I think were quite intentionally different to his previous stuff. I think this is maybe it's quite safe for him, I think, but I've got high hopes for the next one, though. I think again that could be. the kind of story it is. You know, it almost looks like not quite a conspiracy film, but there's kind of elements of that in it. I think, you know, it's almost like unraveling a mystery. You know, what happened to this guy, this eccentric, you know, who's gone missing, and kind of putting it together, and possibly there'll be kind of unreliable narrators, all of different kind of takes on the story. It could be quite interesting.
Nice. I I didn't know this. On his Wikipedia article, I went down to in popular culture, not quite
Yeah,
knowing what to expect, but I now need to go watch the 2013 Saturday Night Live sketch, where they made a parody trailer of a Wes Anderson horror film. Um,
yeah,
there's a Family Guy episode that features his style, Quentin Tarantino and Michael Bay, when Peter gets fired from his job at the brewery.
yeah,
And unsurprisingly, The Simpsons have references to Wes
yeah.
Anderson.
I mean, was it during lockdown that that kind of the AI kind of stuff took over? You know, it's like, what would a Wes Anderson whatever kind of film look like? And there was a whole series of those. And I think a full length trailer. I think for like a non-existent Wes Anderson film. I think that really opened up the debate about AI and stuff. It's like just, you know, just putting in these prompts and coming out with this regurgitated and lazy thing at the other side is probably not a good idea for art.
Yeah. And that remains. Oh, we got to do an AI episode when Kara gets back so badly.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite Wes Anderson online trends is accidentally Wes Anderson, where it sort of
Yes.
it captures the aesthetic, the artistic spirit of what Wes Anderson goes for. And it's always fun to just see people's pictures of like a nautical symmetrical area that they're at.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be quite a bit of fun, I think. Just people, you know, out and about in the real world and spotting, yeah, stuff like that. You know, because his film worlds are just so intentionally artificial or heightened. But you know, you do see stuff like that in the real world occasionally, and it's quite fun to point it out when you do see it.
Yeah, I wish I was better at spotting that stuff. By the way,
Yeah.
fun thing I forgot about until I started Royal Tenenbaums is Angelica Houston being the mom in both the
Yes.
movies.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's in Life Aquatic as well, isn't she? I don't remember whether she's like a matriarchal kind of figure in that as well, but yeah, it seems to be a go-to role for her in the Wes Anderson universe.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I mean, obviously we should mention Bill Murray. I mean, obviously he's been with him throughout his career. You know, I mean, I think it's probably the best joke in the Darjeeling Limited that you know, we open on Bill Murray and he misses the train and misses the movie basically.
okay. So
um,
he doesn't play into the movie at all. I was pretty sure, but
yeah,
even having watched the entire thing again today, um, yeah, it feels like he should maybe be the private investigator that found the mom, or I don't know. But yeah, he's just kind of there because he's Bill Murray.
yeah, yeah. Oh wow! Just I mean, okay. I suppose we're moving on, aren't we, to the main event? But just before I started talk about Royal Tenenbaums, I've noticed on Wikipedia one of the first things you see is the Tenenbaum family tree, which is amazing. Okay, yeah, right. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know whether this was the
I bet
first.
someone's cross stitched the Tenenbaum family tree and has
I
it.
would imagine so. Yeah, it seems like that kind of thing someone would do, doesn't it? Yeah. Um, yes, I don't know if this was the first Wes Anderson film I saw, but it was. It's definitely the one I've gone back to the most, and the one I hold in the highest regard. I mean, I think this is his best film. It's not even close. um, but and it's I think it is generally held in quite high regard, even amongst like fans of most of his work. You know, amongst better examples from his filmography. I think there's just so much to it. And it's one of these where you go back time and time again. I think you do pick up on different things each time, with different subtleties of the characters and each little gags and background details and things. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. So this was his third film, I think,
Yeah.
after Bottle Rocket and Rushmore. And essentially, it's we follow the eccentric, destitute lawyer Royal Tenenbaum, played by Gene Hackman, in his
R.I.P.
in his penultimate film role. I think he did one after this, which wasn't as well received. So most people like to think of this as the cap on his career.
Which is
Um,
crazy. So back when we talked about his death, I didn't know he wasn't already dead. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
crazy that this was his next to last film, and he just lived his
Yeah,
life. Like,
he just retired. Yeah,
who
and I
does
think it
that?
was on the advice of his doctors. I think he was finding film too stressful at his age, and it was, I think, having adverse effects on his heart. I think, and so yeah, he just decided to call it a day. And yeah, as you say, lived his life for his last 25 years or so. Just being a chill dude and cycling around and occasionally meeting fans out in the wilderness. um, Royal Tenenbaum, he's a bit of a deadbeat dad, to put it mildly, and he's trying to reconnect. It's his attempts to reconnect with his fractured, highly dysfunctional family after decades of absence. Um, Essentially by claiming that he's dying of multiple different things on multiple
Yeah.
different occasions, which isn't true. Just to get his foot in the door, basically. And gradually over the film, we peel back the layers on all the family and their issues, myriad issues, and like relationship with each other. So it's this is like the mother of all Wes Anderson eccentric dysfunctional families. I think it's just
Or the father of all? I don't. Which one?
yeah. Yeah,
Sam, who's your favorite character among the Tenenbaums?
Um, Probably Royal. I think. I think Gene Hackman's just so much fun in this because he is an absolute dick, but you kind of love him. You can't help but kind of feel quite a lot of affection for him. Just how he mistreats people, and obviously is emotionally scarred as children and his wife quite a bit over the years. But he's just so damn charming with it, and strangely lovable. I mean, so you have Ben Stiller, who's a Chaz Tenenbaum, so he's like ultra competitive dad, ultra competitive, overprotective dad of two boys. He's most protective of them because his wife's recently died in a freak accident, so he's just terrified he's going to lose them as well. Then you have Richie Tenenbaum, played by Luke Wilson, who was a failed ex professional tennis player. He was basically battling depression throughout this, severe depression. They've got Margot Tenenbaum, there's Gwyneth Paltrow. Margot, named after, I want to say, Wes Anderson's mother, but I'd have to double check that. Definitely a relative anyway.
Interesting.
And she's like a frustrated artist, secret smoker. She's been smoking for since she was like 12, and none of the family know somehow. She lost a finger growing up, so she now has a wooden prosthesis on one hand, and basically she just smokes and sleeps around. Has a lot of fiery short-term relationships with the men in her life.
By the way, I think Gwyneth Paltrow sells those wooden fingers on her website now. So
Wouldn't surprise me. And you also have Eli Cash, who's like the family friend who's close enough almost to be another son, and that's Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson. He's funny. He's in Wes Anderson films. He tends to turn up and plays people with alcohol and drug problems usually. Which not to be too glib about this, but he has obviously had issues like that himself throughout his life. I think considering he writes these screenplays, it's probably very self-aware and kind of writing what he knows. Says, look, I kind of know where he's coming from, so I might as well play this.
and I know he technically isn't in the family, but Eli is my favorite. I love Cowboy Owen Wilson.
Yeah. So he always dressed like a cowboy. He's an author, but a terrible writer by all accounts.
But he makes sales, so
yeah. What was it? What was his book? Was it Old Custer? So, you know, the premise is we all know Custer died at that little bighorn, but what if he didn't? Um,
I also love that he and Luke Wilson are not brothers, even though they
yeah,
obviously are
yeah,
brothers. So that's fun as well.
yeah. I think it's quite seldom they're in the same film and actually playing brothers. It's kind of, I mean, they've been in quite a few things together, but yeah, I think generally they don't acknowledge that on screen. Yeah, despite the fact that they look so alike.
They they look alike, but they also look very different. Because
Yeah,
Owen's got the blonde, shaggy hair, and Luke's
yeah.
usually a bit more, I don't know, put together. He doesn't look like he's a burnout so often.
Yeah, I suppose is why he's been like the more conventional kind of leading man role a few more times. You know, because Owen Wilson can be like the romantic lead or the leading man, but it tends to be like a goofy kind of slightly askew kind of version of that character. You know, as you say, yeah, college dropouts are his specialty for character wise.
Yes.
You get Riley Sinclair as well, Bill Murray, who's a psychologist, and is he married to Margot at this point when we started? I
Yeah,
think.
because their marriage is what wrecks the tennis match
Yes, yes, that
for
was it.
Richie.
Yeah, um, and he's Riley's basically kind of on the periphery of things, but just trying to write his latest psychology book, a study on this kid who processes things really strangely. He seems to be like colorblind and is the way he perceives shapes and everything like that seems to be off. But for some reason, he's got like excellent hearing. The two things may or may not be related. Uh, um, and then you have uh, who else do you have in the cast?
You have Danny
You
Glover is
yeah,
the
so you have Angelica Houston is the matriarch, is the mother, the mother to the children, and Royal's kind of a strange wife. You know, they're still technically married all these years later, but he hasn't been a going concern for a long time.
and she was
And
the
she's
primary caretaker of the children, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And she's seeing the family lawyer, played by Danny Glover. There's obviously when Royal comes back into their life, there's a bit of a rivalry going on there. I mean, one of the most uncomfortable kind of comic kind of recurring gags in this is when he's trying to stand up to him is Gene Hackman standing up to Danny Glover and trying to talk jive with him, talk street with him. You know, it's just very very uncomfortable, but really funny as well.
I also, when it comes to Danny Glover, I like the scene where he tells Angelica Houston she needs to be single for legal purposes, which is probably the way I would go about telling someone they needed to get divorced so I can marry them.
Yeah, yeah. And you have Pagoda, who's Royal's assistant, who saved who
Former
saved him
assassin.
and tried to murder him multiple times over the years. He's essentially he's his Indian assistant in this. And the guy who plays me, he's been in I think all of Wes Anderson's films, and apparently he what's his name again?
Kumar.
Kumar Palana, yeah. And he's basically he won a part in all of Wes Anderson's films because he used to work at his favorite coffee shop when he was at uni.
That's amazing. I need to
Yeah, and
start
they just got talk.
working at
They
coffee
just got talk.
shops.
Yeah, they just got talking and got very friendly, and they said, "Oh, yeah, I like you. You're interesting. Do you want to be in a movie?" And he's been in everyone ever since.
And then who are Ben Stiller's children or Chaz's?
Yeah, so Chaz's children. So Ari and Uzi,
Yes.
and that thing is So along with their dad, that they always wear these red as Adidas tracksuits. And
Wait, how did you
apparently
pronounce that?
We say Adidas in
Adidas.
the UK.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Would you say Adidas?
We say Adidas. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Anyway, they apparently Ben Stiller asked Wes kind of what the theory behind that was, and I don't think he had any kind of strong feeling about it. He just says, I always imagined these characters that way. I just saw them like that, and but it very much kind of fits into like the strong primary colors and kind of being able to pick out a character very easily. I mean, if you look at the Criterion release of this, they've got these caricatures of all the characters, and they're very much kind of summed up in like their costume choices and just a few key items. They're easily recognizable, by their silhouettes and just a few key colors.
Yeah, that's true. Like Luke Wilson wears the headband and long hair and ridiculous
Yeah,
sunglasses.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Royal, it's like a series of. I mean, he's got these big kind of thick rim kind of glasses, and but you kind of see it as he goes to sea throughout the film, because at the start he's quite well dressed, because he's been living in a hotel for decades, and he's got lots of very nice tailored suits and everything. But as he basically loses all his money, he's kicked out of the hotel. That's the main reason for re-engaging with his family, just to have a bed to sleep in. But then he ends up having all these quite undignified jobs throughout the film. So when he's turning up in later scenes, he's dressed as a bellhop. And I think he has another job towards the end as well. But you see kind of where he's at just by but as soon as he stops wearing the nice suits, and he's just got to turn up in his work clothes, kind of sums up where he is in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have a weird relationship with Margot and
Richie.
and Richie, yeah. So and they're very clear to say that they're ahead of us and love each other. The key thing is that Margot's adopted, right? So it's not creepy at all. They keep emphasizing that, even though it's still kind of creepy. If she's raising his sister, it's still kind of creepy.
It's questionable at best.
Yeah.
I wonder what Bill Murray's character Raleigh would have to say about it.
Yeah, probably sit down on the couch. Yeah, get hours of discussion out of that, I'm sure. You get Mordecai as well, Mordecai the Falcon, owned by Richie, who he kind of releases early on the film, and comes back to him by the end, which I'm sure was a metaphor for something, but I've not.
Well, Sam, he was different. He's got more white feathers on his neck.
That's true, yeah. And the reason for that, apparently, is because the original Falcon was kidnapped during shooting. I didn't know you could kidnap a bird of prey, but apparently you can.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So because they couldn't get him back,
I would check the Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, they got another similar enough looking Falcon, but yeah, as you say, had more white feathers by the end. And one of the provisos, because I think Wes Anderson originally offered the role of Royal Tenenbaum to another Gene Wilder. Apparently, once to play the role, which would have been very different. I think, not necessarily inferior, just different. I'd say.
I would have thought of Roald Dahl even more than I already was.
Yeah, but he politely declined, saying no. He was he'd already retired by the point. He says, "No, I'm enjoying my retirement. I'm not going to."
What is it with genes that retiring? Good for them.
Yeah. But Hackman accepted the role after a quick script rewrite to give him some more interesting kind of character stuff and dialogue. I think both him and Jack Houston insisted on that. They said, "Oh yeah, we like the script, but give us some more good one-liners, and then we'll do it."
Which is curious, because I guess that it's because they had to change it. But yeah, Royal feels like the sort of the central figure of the film, and obviously he is story-wise, but he does feature most prominently if you had to pick a protagonist.
The whole story is the family's relationship. Their stories are all in relation to his and where he's at whatever point in the story we're at. I mean, it opens with, again, a classic Wes Anderson kind of conceits. kind of inviting you to recognize the kind of the artifice behind it. You know, it'll show you. I mean, we used to quite a few films like this where it's like it's literally it's a book that you see the page has been turned, and then we go in and out of the book and kind of see how the chapters kind of unfold, and we're kind of coming in and out of the text. Um, I mean, that's you can get more Wes Anderson opening shots of a library book being put down in front of the counter, dead center, perfectly straight, and then being reopened, and you
Meticulously
get the story out of
stamped.
that. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's narrating it as well, isn't he, Gene Hackman? So it's and that's probably one of my favorite aspects of this, because he's in the story, he's just so gregarious and expressive, but his narration is just so steady and kind of unexpressive and just matter of fact. I don't know, and it sets the perfect tone, which just introducing the characters one by one, a quick whistle stop tour of their life up to that point, and kind of their issues and kind of what they're coming up against.
But quick correction, Alec Baldwin. I didn't know it was
Is it?
him. Yeah, I just checked it. Alec
got it wrong.
Baldwin does the narrator or
Wow,
narration.
okay, I didn't know it sounded like Gene Hackman to me. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have checked that. Right, well, Alec Baldwin, good narration for this story.
He also did Cat in the Hat around this time, so just
Yeah.
big on children's book movies.
Because I thought that would have made more sense to me, that that although spoiler alert, he does die by the end of it, but I thought that would be quite nice, him almost kind of presenting his family's life, cradle to grave, even if he's not past it all. Okay, fair enough.
Well, and I guess that adds to the artifice of it being a story, so because that's how every bit of the story opens, with a chapter. You can see like the beginning of the text of like where it's taking place, what's happening.
Yeah. So Gene Hackman agreed to kind of star in the film, after a script rewrite, and that he made it because he felt like he was getting towards the end of his career. He was struggling kind of health wise, to keep up with the rigorous schedule of like a long film shoots. And he made Wes Anderson promise that it wouldn't be a stressful shoot, that you could just relax and get into it, and it wouldn't be too trying on him. But unfortunately, got quite frustrated quite quickly by Wes's kind of meticulous kind of planning of every shot and the demands of him as a performance. Wes Anderson was a big fan of him, as an actor, but I don't think they really saw eye to eye creatively, and I think Gene Hackman was quite difficult. I mean, he's famously was difficult with a lot of directors. When you got a good result in the end, but usually the process up to getting that end result was trying. But basically, he ends up almost like using his star power and trying to bully his way to get his own kind of own way throughout. And a lot of stars had to come to his aid, especially Bill Murray. I mean, Bill Murray, I think, had always kept a close eye on him. They got on. He often appeared in his films for lower than standard pay grade. Just for scale. Just to so his name could help sell this kind of film, this fairly obscure director at the time. But Bill Murray basically ended up staying on set even when he wasn't required, just to keep an eye out and make sure Hackman didn't go too far. And that's a fight Wes Anderson's corner a few times. So good on Bill Murray for protecting his friend like that. But
that's interesting to know about Bill Murray, because when I think of Bill Murray, I think of the copy pasta online of him being a dick to someone in a grocery store line, even though that's a fake story.
Yeah. But and he's had his fair amount of stories over the years in terms of not clashing with directors and being difficult and everything. But nice to know what people he really rates creatively, sees eye to eye with. He will fight their corner. But the end result, I think, for me, is one of Gene Hackman's best roles in his quite considerable career. I just think it's difficult to make like on paper such an unlikable character, quite warm and kind of just you love to hate him. He's thinking, oh yeah, he's a terrible dad, and he's put his family through a lot of suffering. But there may be a sliver of good in there. He might be trying. That he's trying to pull the wool over their eyes and kind of just basically have somewhere to sleep. But there's probably some good in there. I think he does really care about them all. He just struggles to show it, and I quite like it then that Ben Stiller's basically, he's not buying any of it. He sees right through and just says, what are you up to? Like, why now? You haven't been here for years, and he doesn't want his, his sons seeing him. But Royal does make an effort, I think, to connect with his grandkids, and have a nice day out shoplifting with granddads.
See, my favorite was when he first meets them and says, "You didn't meet me, but you're gonna go tell your dad you want to meet me, and here's how." And he tells them to call him
Yeah,
Pappy, and
yeah,
they
yeah,
gets them to manipulate him by saying, "This mom would have wanted you to us to meet him and spend time together."
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are some great one-liners in the film, but most of them from Gene Hackman, from Royal. But I think my favourite was again. I think it's from that first meeting, with his grandsons, and he says, "I'm sorry for your loss. Your mother was a terribly attractive woman." Just like, yeah, okay, yeah, the sentiment's there, but you have to be so kind of creepy about it. um,
That's another
I mean,
not related, so you technically can't get mad scenario.
yeah, yeah. Um, but you get as you say, Angelica Houston, the mum, has obviously raised them all. She's been in their lives. She's an archaeologist, by the way, which again I think Wes Anderson's own mother might have been. So that there is kind of a connection there. But she's obviously as you say, the primary caregiver. She's still in their lives. Trying to they'll go to her for for moral support, and she's there for them. But she's got a stage of life where she wants to move on. She's start a life anew, and Royal come back into the picture and still seem to have been interested in her. She just doesn't have time for that. I mean, it's quite nice that they keep their relationship fairly kind of civil. They obviously still have affection for each other and they get along to a point, but she's obviously Understandably gets so upset when he goes back and forth a few times about whether he's dying or not.
Yeah.
Just to getting the right reaction. And his final kind of passing gift to her is a quickie kind of divorce divorce document. He brings a notary along with him and gets a sign in the street. So
I, the part for me that is the toughest is Owen Wilson, not Owen. That's a different Wilson. Luke Wilson, dealing with his depression that does ultimately culminate in him cutting off all of his hair and his beard. And I didn't expect him to actually slit his wrist, but no, yeah, that's where it goes. It's quite dark, and yet somehow treated, with a very deft touch.
Yeah, and when he's out of hospital, he goes to see Margot, and they meet up in the little tent she's put up in a room. It's like this holdover from childhood, and it's like, sign of affection. Yeah, we love each other. Oh, do you want to see my scars? Do you want to see my stitches?
Yes. I think the Falcon one thing Margot brings up is people, they go through something stressful and their hair turns white, and he and the Falcon perhaps have gone through something that has changed them physically together. I would like to think it's the same Mordecai.
Yeah, and there are these kind of dark jokes. I mean, just when we first see Margot, she's taken to just sitting in the bathtub all day watching TV, and like her mum's like main concern is you really shouldn't have electronics so close to water. She's like, I tied it to a radiator. It's like bit of flimsy rope, just kind of barely holding it in place.
Yeah, no, this is a really fun movie for all of that. Just light darkness.
Yeah, and it's like a series of vivid character vignettes. Essentially, it's like this cast of colourful characters and what they're up to now, and they're only kind of vaguely linked. Really, it could just be a series of sketches essentially, but it kind of works for what it is because it's purposely like episodic. To tie into like the whole it being chapters in this almost like a great American novel is what it's supposed to be, I suppose. I mean, it's original. Like apart from the Roald Dahl stuff, generally Wes Anderson tends to write his own kind of stories. Usually the co-writer. But yes, though this is the original story, it's very much influenced by several novels and movies. I think he was influenced by Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons, which again is about a big sprawling eccentric family. So it's
Wiki
almost like
mentions J.D. Salinger also.
yeah. So again, like these very imposing kind of doorstop novels. um, with casts of eccentric characters. I mean, it's almost like it's presented as like the great American novel that never was. It feels like it should have been adapted from something, even if it actually isn't.
Yeah. Well, I guess by this time, I mean, television was really the thing, but this is the medium for great American, art by the start of the 21st century when this is coming out. Television hadn't quite gotten into its Sopranos and The Wire and all of that being cultural touchstones for television art.
Yeah, I mean, he's never even flirted with the idea of moving into TV, has he, Wes Anderson? I mean, this is very much a determinedly kind of cinematic experience. I mean, obviously, it's referencing like literature and kind of past cinema, but I think it could only. I think he only really wants to present his vision on a big screen and make all those bold kind of production design framing choices kind of really pop. I'm not sure if they'd. I'm not sure if I've seen his films in the cinema. I think I've seen the last few probably on streaming, but
I saw
I've seen
Asteroid
his.
City in theaters.
Yeah. I probably need to see the next one kind of on the big screen because I think I've seen most of his on small, but I'm sure his visuals really work on like the biggest screen possible. Yeah, so I think if this is probably a good one to kind of get into his headspace and his kind of his usual way of storytelling. Probably if you don't like this one, you may not like others. I think this has got all of his kind of usual kind of style and go-to themes and kinds of characters he likes to explore, kind of distilled down. And I think it's really layered and kind of complex, but kind of a bit dark, but also quite whimsical, and really funny as well. So I think it's I think I say this is the one I have the most affection for. I like Rushmore. Like Grand Budapest, and I really enjoyed the Prince Dispatch of the Year and the animations as well. But I think this is one that stands the test of time and is rich enough and deep enough for you to go back to and keep noticing new things. If you do return to it. So yeah.
Nice. And it is really good. I definitely agree with you on that. But what I love about the Darjeeling Limited is that instead of the ensemble sort of scope of Royal
Yeah.
Tenenbaums, it's just focused on the three brothers. Yes, and that I think thinking through a lot of his movies, they are more of the ensemble pieces, and this and Grand Budapest sort of stand out as a bit more character focused.
I mean, it's become a bit of a cliche now, but usually you there's no obviously apart from the way they look, there's no mistaking like a movie poster for a Wes Anderson film because you'll see like this block of characters, these big names, listed. It's like ridiculous. There's like usually about 20 names, under each other. It's so all these talented actors kind of queue up to work with him, and even for like quite small roles, often they want to be part of his kind of his vision.
Yeah, well, like Natalie Portman in this one. So basically, Darjeeling Limited is about three brothers who are on a train trip through India. It's supposed to be a spiritual journey to find themselves, at least according to Owen Wilson's Francis. And along the way, they are squabbling and getting into mischief, and dealing with the death of a father who died a year ago, and they were abandoned by their mother. So, once again, Wes Anderson,
Yeah,
dysfunctional parent stuff.
yeah, yeah. 'Cause, it was the mother's who didn't make the trip to the funeral, but she's been living out in a monastery in the wilderness in India for a long time.
Yeah, and one thing I was not aware of, I own this movie. Did not know that there was a pre-movie short film called Hotel Chevalier, and it's about Jason Schwartzman and Natalie Portman just having a short time together in this French hotel in
Yeah,
Paris before Jason Schwartzman heads off to India for this trip. Um,
yeah,
and,
because I hadn't seen that, but I knew there was some connecting thing because obviously he refers to it in his writing. So his character's a writer, and it's like recounting his his previous experiences and relationships usually.
Yeah, and it's obvious that like Natalie Portman has this hold over him, and you can
Mm.
see where that comes from in that little episode where she comes up and he gets himself all ready and dressed, and she assumes sort of like a more position of power throughout their physical endeavors, and they have this Wes Anderson quirky back and forth. They listen
Yeah.
to a French song, and that it's over. I wish I had watched the feature where it goes from that into Darjeeling
Mm.
Limited, but instead I just watched the separate mini and then played the full
Yeah.
movie.
It'd be interesting to find out why he decided to split them like that. Because I think, if anything, this film feels a little bit short. It's I think it's bang on 90 minutes, really, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I don't know, a little lead in possibly might have helped. Not say it feels rushed or anything, but it doesn't feel as kind of substantial, as some of his films. That maybe though the character work's very good, it might giving them a bit more room to breathe, possibly lingering on a few more of the more emotional beats might have helped. I mean, I don't mind this one. It's not one of my favorites by any means, but it would probably be quite low down on a list of his movies for me. I just don't feel as strongly um, emotionally connected with it for whatever reason that is.
Oh, that's fair. And I mean, that's, low on the Wes Anderson scale, by the
Yeah,
way. Um,
yeah.
because it is very much a Wes Anderson movie. It's got, so watching this and Royal Tenenbaums, what I noticed was he will, or he and his cinematographer will collaborate on, like, there will be zooms. There's a lot of whip panning going on in Royal Tenenbaums. So whenever you think of Wes Anderson, you think of the still
Yeah,
center frame shots, but like there's
yeah,
plenty of camera movement to go around.
yeah. And the confined space of, because so much of it takes place on this train, within carriages and corridors and stuff, and that kind of lends itself quite well to his normal style because kind of the camera movement is kind of doing what it does, but the frame is restricted, but so is the space around the frame, so it kind of feeds into that.
Yeah. Also on Hotel Chevalier, and I'm probably butchering that. I don't know how to say French stuff. One thing I wondered is, why is this Jason Schwartzman instead of Owen Wilson's character?
Mm.
And I mean, part of that is you would be spoiled for Francis's sort of discussion of what he went through before this, but also Jason
Yeah.
Schwartzman's a writer on it with his cousin Roman Coppola, and this is the
Mm.
first Coppola collaboration for Wes
Yeah.
Anderson.
Yeah. And the brothers are named after Francis Ford Coppola and what the other brothers called? They're all named after directors, aren't
I
they?
I don't know who the other two are, but yeah, Francis, Peter, and Jack are the three brothers.
Okay, yeah. So it was Francis Ford Coppola, Peter Bogdanovich, and I don't remember who the Jack was. Was it Nicholson? I don't know. I'd have to look
Ooh,
it up. But there was definitely a reason for it. Hang on.
we have done a Jack Nicholson directed film, so that
Yes,
counts.
we have.
Um, yeah, Bill Murray, while you're doing this, is listed as the businessman. So yeah, he's just Mister
Yes,
Sir not appearing in this film.
yes.
Did you find who it was?
Keep filling.
Okay, I can continue to
I,
fill.
I literally read this yesterday and I've already forgotten it.
Oh
I
gosh.
remember the other two.
Yes, Natalie
Um,
Portman. Her character is Rhett.
here, here-
Oh,
here we go. Named after Francis Ford Coppola, Peter Bogdanovich, yeah, and Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
there you
So,
go. Three idols of the new Hollywood movement.
yeah.
So makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, collaboration writing wise with Schwartzman and Coppola, and I think that it's interesting that this is a movie of three brothers, and he gets Adrian Brody instead of Luke Wilson. Um, but I could see Luke Wilson playing any of the other two brothers. He would have fit right in. But yeah, much like
Yeah. Again, though they look so different, I completely bought them as brothers. I think see, obviously you do get families like that, look, how different from each other, but they're just most of their chemistry together, and they're kind of dynamic and these kind of recurring things that come up time and time again. These different behavioural tics and stuff like. I love just that thing that Adrian Brody's character, is he just steals things. He's lifted all these old belongings from their dads, or he's borrowing Owen Wilson stuff as well throughout. He just pick stuff out and wears it, and just he seems to have a new item like every scene.
well, so I mean, this is a spoiler for the movie, but you have to kind of know that their dad was struck by a taxi. His change flew all over the street. And Adrian Brody, Peter, was the only one there. He's apparently the dad told him he was his favorite as he was dying. And so Peter feels a bit entitled to all of his belongings. But yeah, you're probably right. He probably took those glasses right off his dying face in the street. By the way, we didn't mention, how did Royal say that he died at the end of Tenenbaums on his epitaph?
Oh yeah, so so he actually dies of a heart attack. But yeah, on his gravestone, it was it died saving his family from exploding
Yeah,
oil tanker.
a destroyed battleship.
Oh, battleship. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is how he died.
Yeah. I also like that Owen Wilson character because he's the eldest brother, is he? I think they say.
Yeah.
But they very much like mothers them, and you see later in the film when Angelica Houston turns up, where his like little turns of phrase comes from, but basically he kind of bosses the others around, orders their food for them, just basically decides everything and doesn't really give them an option, just does a rhetorical. Are we all happy with that? But obviously they are going to be happy with that because he said it. But
and the other thing he's always saying is, I want us to be brothers again. Can we agree to that? And he's always coming up with little goals and things that he wants them to achieve together. That it's just him wanting to focus on that. The other two, Peter is essentially running away from his child being born. His wife does not know he's in India. And Schwartzman is running away from his relationship. He's a writer, like you mentioned. He's writing fictional stories about non-fictional subjects and denying the reality of it.
Yes, they all have to do a lot of running away from their demons, but also actual running in this. And I'm particularly impressed with Jason Schwartzman having to do so much in bare feet. I don't think he wears shoes throughout this. And I keep forgetting. I was thinking, did he lose his shoes at any point? Is he just not wearing them? Is that just his thing?
Someone stole his $10,000 loafers or whatever.
No. Sorry, I said almost. Yeah, so almost. Yeah. So one of his shoes gets nicked, so he has to put the slipper on. And he's already walking with a limp because he's been in a car accident. No, sorry, Jason Schwartzman's character. He's barefoot for most of the film. I don't remember, but I can't. Was that the same instant where his shoes taken at that point? So
I don't remember, but Schwartzman is barefoot and Owen Wilson has mismatched shoes.
Yes, yeah.
And you know what? Adrian Brody probably stole the shoes. That's bound to have been what happened. But there's a part where they're, with the shoe dealer going like, do you have a 10.5? They're like, this will fit.
Yeah. Um, and there's obviously there's a thing about because Omar's character, he's been in a big
It's
car
a
accident, hasn't
motorcycle
he?
accident,
Yeah, sorry, motorcycle accident. Yeah,
and also a
uh,
suicide attempt, which
yeah.
um,
Again, another suicide attempt. Yeah, which is like a recurring theme.
and going back to Owen Wilson's personal life, I'm not going to say that he had suicide attempts, but I do know that depression was uh,
Yeah,
something that he's been
no,
open about.
he's been in and out of rehab, and yeah, I think there was quite a more publicised incident about 15 years ago. I think in the year it was like an attempt like that. It's interesting that he does keep turning up in his friends' movies, and it's like, so how banged up do you want me to appear in this one? I mean, this is his most banged up, I
Wow.
think, isn't it?
How
Just
banged up do you want me to look, Wes?
it's just half his head, wrapped in bandages with his like steel plate, kind of keeping everything together, and he's got a cane, and
Which is a metaphor for how he tries to keep everything together, isn't it, Sam?
yeah, 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 and he I can't remember which other actor suggests this to him, but he used the old technique of putting something in his shoe, to give him a limp, so he didn't forget to limp on that foot. I think he put like half a lime in the end of his shoe or something.
What?
Just to
I wonder
remind
why
him.
a lime?
I don't know why a lime. I don't know whether
The
that's
gross
relevant.
sensation.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah, and their dynamic together. Yeah, he's always controlling. Adrian Brody's just sarcastic, and it generally seems unpleasant to be around. Other than the fact
yeah,
that they are all drunk and high constantly, they talk about the
yeah,
medicines that they were able to purchase, which for
yeah,
Americans, drug tourism is a thing. Like you go to Mexico because they'll sell things
yeah,
over the counter we can't
yeah.
get.
Yeah, yeah. Because one of them's got like these drops, and others got like pills, and they've all like a different thing for their specified, ailments, and then they all end up kind of swapping and having a
Passing them
bit of
around.
each.
That reminds me of the Owen Wilson line in Royal Tenenbaums. I'm on mescaline.
Yeah. Um, I think my favourite character in this though is the conductor on the train. Just who just sees right through them, just will not tolerate any of their bullshit. And just kicks them off.
Wes
But
Anderson loves his hospitality workers.
yeah, yeah, and he loves having them turn the tables. They're not usually like the butt of the joke. They normally get like a moment where like, they get one over. The belligerent character who's in theory trying to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and he throws them off the train, which leads to them having to walk over, rocky, hot terrain.
Yeah,
But then I don't necessarily love the part where they run into the kids and then say
no,
like it feels a bit
yeah,
over dramatic and I
yeah,
know we
trying
talked
to
about the heightened reality, but
trying to cross the river on a raft, and then the raft goes down, so they
with
have to dive in and
vegetables,
save them.
I was worried
Yeah,
about the vegetables.
they have to save them, and then one of them doesn't make it, and then they're invited to the kid's funeral when they reach his village.
Which
Yeah,
what that does serve is it's the point where it jumps back in time to a year ago where they're at the
mm,
father's funeral and like literally they're
yeah,
sitting in the in their Indian sort of garb, and
yeah,
then it cuts over to them sitting in the exact same spots in a limo dressed in suits and uh,
yeah,
they go
yeah,
to try and get dad's Porsche. Well, Adrian Brody wants to get dad's Porsche, but it
yeah.
won't
Which
run.
which is which has been in there for like months. It's still not ready, and I mean, it's a shame really that they try like the it still hasn't got a replacement battery, so they can't even boost up the engines. They try pushing out of the shop at first, and they're gonna kind of roll it to the funeral, because that's what their dad would wanted. But yeah, shame that plan didn't go through because I want to see how that ended up.
Yeah. That just the whole time I was going, guys, the battery's dead.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to jump it, but then you're gonna have to do it again when you leave the Nope, just leave the car. But
yeah,
obviously, these are not the most well adjusted
no,
trio in the world.
no, no, and then they all revert back to almost childhood. When they finally do meet up with their mother at the monastery. Um, because you can imagine that growing up, they would have probably all been quite needy kids, I would imagine, and she probably kind of was always there, to support them, to be a shoulder to cry on, to making their breakfast, just to be their constant. And then I suppose, when she left for India, and their dad died shortly after, it's probably a bit too much for them all to cope with because they're not fully rounded adults, despite being kind of adults in like literal terms. They're
And,
all a bit they're all a bit arrested development wise, I think.
hey, that's the name of the show. Sam, what is the reason the mom gives for why they shouldn't visit her in a letter?
Because there's a tiger in the area.
Yeah, it ate one of the sister's brothers. uh,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one thing I thought when I first saw this, I'm still a bit unsure about going back to it now. This is very much an American tourist view of India, I think, and I don't think they quite escape the kind of the stereotypes about the culture and stuff. Yeah, really.
well, I think the way that it subverts that is one of the famous white people go to India pop culture phenomenons is the Beatles going to India.
Yeah,
And gaining all of this insight and learning how to play sitar and just bringing all of this back with them for their new music. And
yeah,
with this film, I think it takes that like white Orientalist sort of approach and is like, yeah, but these guys are idiots. Like,
yeah. That's
what's
true.
actually going to get them through is connection with themselves, not connection with another culture.
Yeah,
It's not this
yeah.
spiritual tourism.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he would have probably wanted to have some music from the Beatles somewhere on the soundtrack, but it was probably too expensive. So at the end, he goes for like Indian cover versions of like rock and roll songs generally.
Yeah, the Kinks
Um,
uh,
yeah,
and then also there's some Indian music in there too. And
yeah, yeah,
Wes Anderson loves a
yeah,
musical montage. That's another thing he
yeah,
loves.
yeah. I mean, I'm surprised he's not done a full-blown musical by this point, really, because I think it would very much suit his kind of sensibilities.
That would be interesting. I'd like to watch that.
I suppose it's quite difficult to do like deadpan singing, isn't it? That's probably why.
I think and I've one of the things that stands out to me the most from this time watching was they're sitting around the fire and they
Mm,
one of them asks, do you think we'd still be friends if we weren't brothers? And one of them says, I think we'd be more likely. uh and it's this sort of close familial relationship that's ultimately driving them apart. uh,
yeah.
but I mean also the fact that they're just individually jerks, as we see with Owen Wilson and his assistant.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, it's literally get someone on the trip purely just to do an itinerary for each day. Just treat them like absolute garbage.
Is
Um,
a servant.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder if Owen Wilson this felt hit particularly close to home. As a guy growing up with brothers and stuff. And kind of difficulties that come with that. I mean, I don't know what his home life was like. I mean, I presume him and Luke get along fine, considering they work together so often. But
And
because there's another Wilson brother, isn't there? I think
oh,
there's three of them,
I wasn't
I
aware of
believe.
that. I guess he's the other Hemsworth that people don't even know
Yeah.
because he dated somebody. Yeah. Oh, and I guess the second Hemsworth was in the Hunger Games too. So
Yes. Yes. The other Wilson is Robert Wilson.
that sounds more like the dad than a brother with Owen and
Yeah.
Luke.
Yeah. 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 Oh no! Actually, no. Sorry. Robert is the dad. Sorry. Yeah. So
Oh,
sorry. It's
look at me.
Andrew Wilson. Andrew
Oh,
Wilson is the other brother, and he is also an actor. Though I've never seen him before in my life. I don't think I even. What's he been in?
which one does he look more like? I'm not gonna Google him, but you know.
Not like either. He's got long hair and a beard. um, he
Oh
looks.
wow, he looks like a
Yeah.
caveman. I mean,
He
no
does. Yeah.
offense to him, but yeah, he doesn't look anything like either of them.
Yeah. So apparently he was in Royal Tenenbaums. I don't remember him in that. So okay,
Interesting. No, he looks like an maybe outdoor sports athlete or something like that. Um,
yeah,
yeah, interesting. You know what? We'll have to do brothers who are in other movies as a
yeah.
topic at some point.
So I think it's Andrew the eldest. I think Andrew Wilson is 60. Luke is only 53, and Owen is 56. Yeah, so really, Owen is the Adrian Brody character in this dynamics and in
Wow,
real life.
that's interesting. Yeah, and we just saw The Brutalist this last year. I love Adrian Brody. Even though
Yeah,
people might think he's insufferable for his long speech, I don't care. The dude's a good actor. You could just put him on mute. That's what I did. I saw that he won, and then I stared at the screen for 5 minutes.
6.5.
Sorry, 6.5. I didn't mean to undersell it. But I really like this movie for it. It's a Wes Anderson movie. It feels cozy. It's fun to watch. I like the brother dynamic. I like that it's a little more limited. And yeah, no, it's not perfect by any means. But as far as movies go, I mean,
Yeah,
it. You're gonna have to have Wes Anderson's filmography for this not to be your best movie.
yeah. I mean, actually, I think it's low down the list for me, just in terms of his films in general. But I'd say for most filmmakers, this would be perfectly decent. You know, I just yeah, I find it less. I'm less inclined to revisit it regularly. I think the others, some of the others, it's more memorable for me, really, more enjoyable to watch. But yeah, this has got perfectly good performances. I like the brother dynamic, and so I like it when he does go a bit off the beaten track from his usual stuff. I mean, lots of Andersonisms in this, but he's in another country, exploring a different culture through an American prison, which is kind of interesting, even if it's not entirely successful for me. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, when Brits explore India, it's in a much worse way. So,
yeah,
um, anyway, obviously out of these two, I like I like this one more, but Tenenbaums is definitely a better movie. So, um, I don't know. I know Kieran is not the most fond of Wes Anderson, uh, but maybe we'll force him to watch one in the future.
yeah. I mean, if he was going to be on this episode, I think he said he would have chosen Grand Budapest Hotel, because he actually remembers seeing that and has an opinion on it.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, do you have any final thoughts on Wes Anderson, Sam?
I get why he's a kind of a love or hate kind of um, filmmaker. I don't think anyone thinks he's okay. I think you have strong opinions on someone who's just so out there and kind of proud of their kind of their aesthetic, and across their filmography. But yeah, I think he's a great kind of, for me, a great visual artist. But he's not just he's not just kind of visuals without the substance. I think he goes to explores kind of people in really interesting ways, and goes to like the darker aspects of human nature and relationships, but never in like a really depressing downbeat way, just in a very kind of matter of fact, kind of bittersweet kind of way. Aren't humans weird? Isn't this situation kind of bleak but kind of funny too? So
And
I like
you
people who do that.
you couldn't have that balance without the style, because otherwise it would be really bleak watching these sad
Yeah,
brothers who
yeah,
lost their dad and are grieving. I mean, there's a version of this that is not as fun. Um,
mm.
and what Wes Anderson's style makes things whimsical and makes
Yeah.
things a bit silly.
Yeah, I suppose all of his films could be like straight dramas, couldn't they? If you just change the tone and the color palette a little bit. But yeah, it's that sense of whimsy and the kind of the jokes. I mean, there's plenty of jokes in his films as well. And yeah, it's just a very unique kind of view of the world, and kind of presenting a heightened version of kind of what we all experience back to us. Yeah, it's really interesting filmmaker.
Yeah, and going back to that, his style is a thing. Like by 1996, I mean, think of all of the films that had ever been made. To be able to really put a distinct style out into the film art
Yeah.
world is just
Mm.
an achievement of its own. Because yeah, people have done center frame shots before, but
Yeah.
you know, just his particular aesthetic is so unique to himself, and you can't necessarily point at another filmmaker and say, I mean, yeah, he's pretty much doing that, like you could with, I don't know. I can't think of someone like that off the top of my head, but you know,
I think
Ari
the
Aster does not have a distinct style
yeah.
in the way Wes Anderson does.
I think the closest comparison in terms of like, you know, you see a frame from a film, you know who it's made, it's probably Tim Burton, I think.
Yep.
And again, a bit of a love or hate kind of filmmaker. People have strong opinions on it. It's basically whether you jibe with their aesthetic, their style or not. Really, it's
Yep.
up to you.
And
Very personal thing.
Tim Burton is one of those knots for me. So
Yeah.
I get it, Kieran, I guess, with you not liking Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode, I guess. But we'll be back next week with something else. Until then, Sam and Ghost of Kieran, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack. I don't think I've written anything this week. The last thing I wrote was an anniversary review of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I was going to do later this year when it's actually the film's 20th anniversary, but because Val Kilmer died quite recently, I thought I'd bring it forward and acknowledge one of his more memorable roles over his the last few years of his career. So, yeah, check out that review.
Yeah, and Kieran is at K Judgmental, and over at the Substack this week, he reviewed Drop and The Amateur. So there's a little double feature from him. You can go read about that. I was shocked that he felt the way he felt about Dropped. If you want some clickbait to get you to go read it. I'm just glad I don't have to watch the trailer anymore. That's the big thing for me. You can find me at Jacob Film Guy, and yeah, I'll write something eventually. I feel a lot like Gwyneth Paltrow in that movie. And eventually I'll write something, it'll be received to mixed reviews and only run for 2 weeks.
I've just remembered Gene Hackman's brutal review of a childhood play.
And
what a guy.
that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.